Dear friends, welcome to another episode of Geopolitical and Military News. In this video, we will discuss the Russian claim over the Norwegian island of Svalbard, and we are facing a new crisis in Europe involving Russia. Last Tuesday, February 13, Yuri Trutnev, the Deputy Prime Minister of Russia, during a meeting with a government commission dedicated to the Russian presence in Spitsbergen, in the Norwegian archipelago of Svalbard, stated that what he called Russian rights over the archipelago are under strong pressure, emphasizing that Russia will not take a step back in what it sees as its right of ownership over those lands. Also during the meeting, Yuri Trutnev said it's all a matter of sovereignty, just like in eastern Ukraine, which indicates that Russia views the issue of its self-proclaimed sovereignty over the Norwegian island of Svalbard in the same way it views its self-proclaimed sovereignty over the Ukrainian oblasts of Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, and Crimea, with Yuri Trutnev further stating that Russian warriors are shedding their blood for Russia's sovereignty, referring to the invasion of Ukraine, and therefore Russia's right over Svalbard cannot be challenged. But what island is this, and why does Russia claim ownership of that territory? Svalbard is a Norwegian archipelago in the Arctic Ocean consisting of several islands, with the main one being Spitsbergen, where the settlement of Longyearbyen is located. The archipelago has a total area of 62,000 square kilometers and a population of just over 2,500 people, composed of 61% Norwegians, with the remaining 38.9% distributed among various ethnicities and nationalities. The archipelago has been known since the 10th century when it was discovered by the Dutch navigator Willem Barents, with the Dutch establishing the first permanent settlement there in 1619. Due to its strategic location, the archipelago attracted many fishermen and whalers, mainly English, Danish, and French, with the first Russians arriving at the end of the 10th century, initially mainly dedicated to polar bear and fox hunting. After the Anglo-Russian War of 1809, Russian activities in Svalbard began to decline until they ceased completely in 1820, with the archipelago being partially abandoned in the second half of the 19th century. With the islands almost completely uninhabited by the end of the 19th century, Norwegians found large coal deposits there, also attracting the interest of the United States and the United Kingdom, who began to exploit the reserves in the early 20th century. However, it was only after World War I, in 1920, that the issue of sovereignty over the archipelago began to be debated, with the Svalbard Treaty, signed that year in Paris, recognizing Norway as the sovereign holder of the archipelago, but it is a special sovereignty, and not all Norwegian laws apply there. After the end of World War II, Norway resumed mining activities on the island, with the Soviet Union doing the same. During the Cold War, the Soviet population on the island surged, accounting for two-thirds of the local population at one point. However, after the Soviet collapse in 1991 and the closure of various mines, the Russian population declined significantly, and today, out of a total of about 2,500 people, 400 are Russians, 10 are Poles, 322 are of other nationalities, with the rest being Norwegians. Despite this multicultural and multinational past, Russia claims, without presenting evidence, that it was a Russian who discovered the archipelago and that because Russians were the largest population group there during the Cold War, Russia now has the right to claim sovereignty over the island. In May 2023, Russians living in Barentsburg even held a parade with the flags of Donetsk, the separatist territory in Ukraine, with the 400 Russians living on the islands organizing and conducting various military-leaning demonstrations without consulting the Norwegian government. When confronted by Norwegian authorities, the Russians claim they owe allegiance not to Norway but to Russia. This attitude of the Russians in Svalbard and the recent statements by the Russian government have reignited tensions that Russia has created with Norway. As Norway is a full member of NATO, any more aggressive moves by Russia could escalate quickly, which is why the archipelago, despite being so remote, has attracted so much attention in recent times. With the ignition of this territorial claim, Russia once again shows that its expansionist appetite has no intention of stopping in Ukraine. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now to support us, and leave your like. Until next time.